Let us start with the message. Yeah. Uh,
Okay.
Mama, why don't you read the seven realities and then we'll get to stay with God. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Okay. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. The seven realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following. 1. The only real existence is that of one and only God, who is the self in every finite self. The only real love is the love for this infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. The only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so called bad, in saint and in so called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand, without expectation of reward. When compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with the perfect calm to the will of God. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. So, in a week, we are going to be in Mehrabad, at least those of us on the call for sure. I think all of the people on the call are going to be probably meeting by midday Saturday next week. So look forward to that. On that note, both Saturday and Sunday next week. So next weekend we will not have the class because also 10th is in silence, which is on Sunday, and Saturday is a day of travel. So both those days we shall not have any session. So we will. I'll also update that on the group. So we were in the love song last week, and we started with the beautiful diagram. We had those interpretations, and in fact, we actually found one stanza that exactly matches that. And yeah, we stopped at page 60. Any thoughts before I get started? No, good. So, Kama, good to know you're back in India. Where are you now? Which parts? Which?
In Bombay.
Good, good. So, when are you headed to Mehrabad?
I'll be there on the 8th morning.
8th morning. Okay, so we guys get there night. All right. Jai Baba. So let's continue our journey with Stay with God on page 61 on those on the physical book. Yeah. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. But I would like to be the most least of a nothing of your servant, and dither about cleaning shoes and carrying water in the ambrosial dawn hours. By God, I would, Baba. It gets a bit irksome waiting for your word, for you to say something. And this blasted murk of a black pitch of a night, which is not dark night, but as said, a black bitch of a night. So he's continuing on the theme of being around Baba, and it's this. Do you remember the two words that Ward described for all love songs, which I think is a very good starting point for what love songs are about? Anybody? What are the two words? What are the two themes that dominate love songs, even in human love songs? Yeah, Bollywood, wherever, right? So, what are those two things? Quiz. It's separation and praise. And if you think about
Yes.
it, it's pretty
Yeah.
it's pretty much the same, right? It's always separation or praise or both, right? So you're longing to get back to your lover, or you're describing beauty and saying how beautiful the person is, and so on and so forth. So anyway, so here he's talking about living with Baba, and he's talking about doing stuff for him and missing that and so on. And I think one word we better look up. What is that? Anybody watch Burke? Just look it up. Okay, murk is old-fashioned spelling of murk. The night was murk and a little girl. Okay, that's all that means. So let's read the whole line again. But I would like to be the most least of a nothing of your servant. So all he's saying is, I'd like to be at your service, and dither about cleaning shoes and carrying water in the ambrosial dawn hours. This is Baba's time. Baba has talked about the early hours being very special. So Francis says ambrosial dawn hours. Ambrosia is Amrit. By God, I would, Baba. It gets a bit irksome waiting for your word. But then he also gets a little anxious and angry here. It gets a bit irksome waiting for your word, because he had said that he will say the word and break his silence. For you to say something, and this blasted murk, so that's exactly the usage that we saw in the dictionary, and this blasted murk of a black pitch of a night, which is not dark night, but just as said, a black bitch of a night. Now, some may say he's crossing the line as poet to use almost a word that's accepted as profanity, but we'll grant him. I mean, we can't do anything. It's a license he has already used. So he uses the word. He's very he if you recollect again, there is a biblical reference to the dark night, and I had mentioned this earlier. So he goes back again to that concept of the dark night, which is before Jesus coming, or before the unveiling, or before the realization. So he's saying that this blasted long night is too long, and I can't wait for it to end. It's a black bitch of a night, right? So with that, please jump in if you have anything to say. Otherwise, I'll keep going. Ho, the nothingness of the nothing, which is the things of thingness in everything. It's again very, very, very beautiful. Ho, the nothingness of the nothing, which is the things of thingness in everything. Nothing am I, but everything art thou, my beloved, lovely and loveliness itself. You, Lord and dear child of yourself, Zeus Bambino Baba. But a little love injected into us could not altogether be frowned upon as miracle making, although it would be a miracle if the injection took. Okay. I'm not sure what this last line means, but I think the rest is just uh, uh, he's inserting something very, very important. So if you remember that specific video that I shared on nothing and everything, so the it's a powerful set of I mean it's the 10 minutes of what parts, but then it's very core to Baba's message, and it's important that we understand it perfectly. So here he brings out one important aspect of that. So the nothing by itself is of a particular reference, but in our understanding and in our journey, we have to understand that what we see is the nothingness of the nothing, because nothing itself we can't see or we can't experience, and that nothingness of the nothing makes the thingness of the things we see, which is in everything, right? So nothing, and then he goes on, nothing am I, but everything art thou, my beloved, lovely and loveliness itself. And he says, you who are the God and the Son of God as well. So you, Lord and dear child of yourself, Zeus Bambino Baba. But a little love injected into us could not altogether be frowned upon as miracle making, although it would be a miracle if the injection took, he says. Anybody on what this injection references here? Ravi, 60, right? Let's keep it scroll to the notes page so that, yeah. Okay, the next one is 62.
What is the reference regarding Bambino here?
No idea. It must be mythical characters. Let's look it up. Zeus is obviously Greek.
Bambino
Yeah.
is like a slang for a little kid. Bambino, I think.
Bambino is
Little
a
baby.
deer, right? Bambino is a baby deer, I think.
It's African, yeah. It's like for referring to a kid. It's a slang. And also, I think what I want to say is when he talks about the nothingness of the nothing, it should be looked upon as you have to understand the difference between real everything, real nothing, false nothing, and false everything. So one has to remember that the real everything is the Paramatma state, and the Paramatma and the state, Paramatma is state 2 out of the God in 10 states. The first state of God is Paratma, Parabrahma, and state 2 of God is Paramatma state. What is the difference? One is aspectless, the first one, the second one with this aspects. This is before the home point. And as soon as the whim happens, we have to remember that the whim is part of the nothing. And from the nothing, false nothing, comes the false everything. So you have, so that is why it says that all these things are in the everything. It's latent in it. And we also remember from God Speaks that right from the whim, which is latent, is all imagination, divine imagination. So the nothingness of the nothing should be interpreted as nothingness of the false nothing, because the real nothing is the divine absolute vacuum state. Okay, that is how I have understood.
Perfect. Thanks for that extended clarification. Perfect. Thank you. So Bambino
is child, is it?
Yeah.
Or the avatar. So Lord and dear child.
So here I think it's only referring to Godchild or Baba as son of God, and he's using Bambino. Zeus is the god of the sky in ancient Greek mythology. So, as the chief Greek deity, Zeus is considered the ruler, protector, father. Right. So that's the role he's giving Baba, and son. So I think it's an extension of what we already saw in the prior line, Lord and dear child of yourself. So Zeus, Bambino Baba. So it makes sense. right? What's probably completely not understood is probably what he's saying by the injection took, right? Injected in.
Injection took means those who are, affected by Baba, it takes on. That may be probably he says like that. So those who get connected to Baba, they are taken up.
Like they're taken.
Magnetized.
Awesome. Yeah, even, that's a good way of looking at it. Hey, are you taken? Yes, I'm a Baba lover. I'm taken. Let's go. Let's continue. But it is no good talking to you, Baba. You're just too much love. Whatever we say, you just smile with your smile of divine kindness, as much as to say, oh, these children of mine, myself, why did I ever wake up and start singing? The singing of your smile, stretching out and supporting the nothingness of us of the nothing. Oh, and the dawn song of his mouth. I only hope I'm still around then. So the last few lines talks about the breaking of his silence and the dawn song of his mouth. And he says, I only hope I'm still around then. And that's Francis speaking to Baba. And in the first part, he's just describing the love, the smile, and as though Baba is saying, oh, these children of mine, which is nothing but myself, why did I ever wake up and start singing, says Baba, right, in Francis's words. So let's continue. It's no good talking to one who is the saying of the say which one says, because he doesn't listen because he knows exactly what he is going to say. I'll read those two lines again. It's no one, it's no good talking to one who is the saying of the say which one says, because he doesn't listen because he knows exactly what he's going to say. Tired and tired am I of myself, for the wide expanse of the sky, of your bosom I cry. Awake in my heart, that I may love you with service, else be dust before your feet. Anything but this, not even nothing, nor a place in your everything. Something, oh, my child and my father. So the love theme continues. Separation. It's no good talking to one who's the saying of the say. So he's praising Baba in a sense. Second.
What is that last? Why, oh, my child and my father? Father, I can understand. Oh, my child. Is he referring to himself or
I
who
think
is
he's
the child?
referring
C
matter of
is also capital.
Yeah. So matter of interpretation, but it could be that he's seeing himself talking in the sense of after God realization, and then I don't know. Maybe,
Maybe.
yeah,
Self.
yeah, possible.
Amakoti would refer to self with capital S.
Yes. Okay. So let's continue. The stars weep, and you have compassion on them in their dew to the grass. So he describes dew to the grass as stars weeping, because typically it's the dew that's visible in the morning, and the stars are weeping in the night, and give and that's compassion in their dew or to the grass. A beautiful poetic expression. The stars weep, and you have compassion on them in their dew to the grass. and the wheat fields, that is the grass and the wheat fields. The sun sinks in his shame, and you cover him with hiding night. But my tears laugh at me, and my shame is naked before me. The prayers of the ant and the flame loving moth are you answering, and the heavy earth turning are you guiding with infinite care. A song in your praise or a mute adoration is not much of an asking. Again, beautiful poetic expressions. He's talking about the sun sinking, and then is more about the night scene, and you're covering him with hiding night. But my tears laugh at me, and my shame is naked before me. The prayers of the ant and the flame loving moth are you answering. So the flame loving moth is again a very Sufi expression. Your love is so all encompassing that you actually go and love the flame and get consumed by the flame, right? In, and the heavy earth turning are you guiding with infinite care? So he gives the two examples of the ant's prayer and the moth, and then says, you are anyway guiding with infinite care the functioning of the earth. It's not too much to ask for a song in your praise or a mute adoration, is what he says. A song in your praise or a mute adoration is not much of an asking. And there will come the time of your lovely speaking and your leaving, and my going and returning, and waiting and emptiness, an unlovely earth under my feet, and wide, wide sky somewhere you will be. And the mother will be answering her child, and the loved one, her lover, with moon and star glint of love eyes. Baba, Baba God, son of earth and rains of all growing. So he's talking about the breaking of the silence, followed by him coming back in his next birth, I think. And my going and returning, he says, and wanting and waiting and emptiness, and that's because Baba is not going to be around in his physical form, and hence the earth becomes unlovely, and unlovely earth under my feet, and wide, wide sky somewhere you will be. So the usual expression of how God is in the skies above. So somewhere you will be. And then he compares it to God, sun, and the mother will be answering her child, and the loved one, her lover, with moon and star glint of love eyes. Baba, Baba, God, son of earth, and rains of all growing. So he makes two alternate, in fact, three, if you take the mother reference also to be God. So you see, and the mother will be answering her child, and the loved one, her lover, with moon and star glint of love eyes. So first, he compares moon and star to Baba. Then he says he's the son of the earth. And then finally also says rains. So they are all contrasts, right? Sun is usually contrasted with the moon, sometimes contrasted with a cloudy day, clouds, rain, whatever, right? So, and if sun stands for brightness and happiness, clouds stand for dullness and unhappiness. But then he's bringing all those three elements in his poetic expression to refer to the same, to refer to Baba in all three, right? Okay, yeah. Not only can I not sing of you, my beloved, but I have no place in your work. A lame cur around the streets and back doors of houses am I, who was once a cattle dog whose teeth were respected. Dog I would be, but at your heels, Baba, to trot in your dust, and at campfire at night lie a little way off, watching your every move. And when you lay down, myself to follow you again in dreams. Beautiful Beautiful stanza, right? So cur here is again a older term for dog. Shakespeare uses it a lot. Lame cur around the streets and back doors of houses is what he describes himself to be now. But he was once a cattle dog. Am I who was once a cattle dog whose teeth were respected? So he says, I was a cattle dog that whose teeth were respected. Now I'm just a lame cur. And then these are beautiful words. Dog I would be, but at your heels, Baba, to trot in your dust. So to trot around where he walks, and at campfire at night, lie a little way off watching your every move. And when you lay down, myself to follow you again in dream. Even the following is in a dream. Right? Any comments? Any thoughts?
Oh, nice one.
Yes.
Earlier, regarding cloud, you can juxtapose whale also there.
Yeah, whale is also,
Yes.
Cloud can be seen as a whale, yes. Whale over the sun. Correct. So this stanza is about Abu Said, so we go to the notes after reading this. But I remember your am I not enough to Abu Said, both at the time when the people praised him and when they voided their filth on him. I remember your utter kindness and the hem of your dress in my hand, and your saying, I am always with you, and your own always rejection. The well set mill grinds the wheat small, and you are the king and the king's son on earth who pays for us all. So this is another, I don't know, I'm confused because I've listened to so much of those uh, What Parks videos. I'm not sure if we already covered this uh, wheat mill analogy that Francis uses for God's work, Baba's work. So he says it's like we are dust, we are wheat, and we are ground by Baba to come and be of utility as flour, right? So I don't know if this is the first reference, but this is a nice analogy, right? And then, of course, I think it's the second because here he's talking only about a well set mill grinds the wheat small. So once you get the mill organized, all the things are working correctly, and the machines are trued up and sharpened, and the machine is functioning properly. That's a well set mill that will grind the wheat small. So it's a beautiful expression here. And he's talking about Abu Said. We'll go find out what that is. So Abu Said is a perfect master. In the 11th century, he said, during my novitiate, there came a time when people clamored to get sight of me and even followed me out into the country when I rode out. And one day a voice said to me, am I not enough? Then later on, they despised me and from the gallery in the mosque voided their filth on me. And again the voice said to me, am I not enough? He also said that one is not advanced on the path until people hate one and drive one out as a madman. So, this is from a book called Studies in Islamic Mysticism by R.A. Nicholson, Cambridge Publishers. Right? So, so this is a very, I think he's talking about a perfect master getting carried away by the adulation and respect he receives. So the first time the voice says, am I not enough? Which is God. God saying, hey, am I not enough? Aren't you crossing the line by getting carried away by this adulation? But then that doesn't help. And then again, the voice said to me, am I not enough? And that's the references here. And there's a reference for also the John the Miller grinds the small. So it's a biblical reference. So John the Miller grinds small. The king's son in heaven pays for us all. So the last two lines talks about how the king will anyway pay for everything. So all the milling is paid for by the king's son, which is Baba in this case. John Ball. So see the Dream of John Ball by William Morris. So anyway, that's the reference. Interesting. There's so much packed into this. It's unbelievable. So I'll read the whole thing. It'll make more sense now. But I remember your, am I not enough to Abu Said, both at the time when people praised him and when they voided their filth on him. So the second time, after they threw out filth at him and abused him after the first time the voice was heard, even then God asked the same thing, am I not enough? Then he says, I remember your utter kindnesses and the hem of your dress in my hand. It's a beautiful expression we all relate to. The hold on to the daman, right? The hem of your dress. I remember your utter kindnesses and the hem of your dress in my hand, and your saying, I am always with you, and your own always rejection. That is, Baba says, I am always with you, and you are always rejecting me. And then he brings those two expressions that we just understood a little more about. The well-set mill grinds the wheat small. So John the miller is doing his job, and you are the king, and the king's son on earth who pays for us all. So he's paying the bills, right, in his compassionate form. But no, it is not any that reject me. Myself rejects me, that I may become acceptable to him. And just as a dog, I had to be on my way up to man. So, dog, I must become on my way back to myself. Baba, thou sower and reaper and grinder, thou sifter and again ear grower in each speck of flour. Surely you are in your loving kindness tying up my tongue with the same cords you're cutting away from my heart. Wow, very, very beautiful lines. So these are all biblical terms, right? The sower, the sowing and the reaping are biblical, right? So God is described as the sower and the reaper. And then now we heard John the miller, so grinder. So all three are references to what happens in our lifetime, right? So he's sowing the seed, and then he does the harvest as the reaper, and then he grinds us to perfection, to the small flour. And he says, again, ear grower. So ear is basically agrarian term, agricultural term to talk about the ear of corn. So thou sifter and again ear grower in each speck of flour. Surely you are in your loving kindness tying up my tongue with the same cords you're cutting away from my heart. So you are teaching me detachment by cutting away from my heart the cords and using the same cords to tie up my tongue. It's a beautiful expression. You are the great undoer. Yeah, go ahead.
The previous stanza, though swifter and again ear grower in each speck of floor. What do you mean by this? What is the understanding?
So sifter is the act of separating the good from the bad, right? So viveka, we can link it to viveka or discretion. And he says, again, ear grower. So where it is deserving, you again end up pushing the flower back to the agrarian process to come back through the mill. So reincarnation. And he does this for every speck of flour. As God, every speck of flour is precious, and every speck of flour is yours. And you're going through the sifting process and reaping, I mean, sowing, reaping, and grinding for every speck of flour. That's what I took away.
Yes, that's what I felt like, but I wanted a clarification from others. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, these are all just interpretations, so I may be wrong. There may be other interpretations, but right. Anyway, so let's keep going. You are the great undoer, so that what shall be done shall be done. The remover who brings forward, the stupefier who makes intelligent, the wind that levels the young wheat, that the stalks may grow strong in the sun, while you during the days of its growing attend other else and wet your eyes with the scythe of its reaping. Thou lovely one, thou faithless one of all faith. Interesting. So you are the great undoer. So what does he mean by this? You are the great undoer, so that what shall be done shall be done. So to make something done, you do some undoing. Interesting. But then maybe if we understand the next two lines, you'll understand better. So the remover who brings forward, the stupefier who makes intelligent. Stupefy, let's look it up. Stupefy. Simple past tense of let's go back. Astonish, astound. So let's go back and see it in that context. The stupefier who makes intelligent. So by the act of surprise, you're actually inserting knowledge. By the act of undoing, you're giving strength. So if you read this line, you'll understand what that strength part is. The wind that levels the young wheat. So these grass are pushed by the wind so that the stalks may grow strong in the sun. So the wind is a way of increasing the strength of the wheat. While you, during the days of its growing, attend other else and wet with your eyes the scythe of its reaping. So as you're already pushing this wind on the wheat, you're also on other sides wetting your eyes. Wetting your eyes, as in wetting is teasing and getting ready for, right? So wet with your eyes the scythe of its reaping. So you're already ready with your knife or whatever. Scythe is the large equipment that is that's, I mean, large knife or large what's the word? Anybody? Scythe. Implement used for mowing grass, grain, or other crops, and composed of a long curving blade, right? So you're already ready with your blade to go and reap. Thou lovely one, thou faithless one of all faith. So this is again a very beautiful line. Thou faithless one of all faith. What do you understand from that?
No,
So it's
all ritualistic religions,
religions.
faithless one
Yeah.
of
So
all
he's
faith.
talking about. So you are the a-religious or non-religious one, but you belong to all faiths. Thou faithless one of all faith. So again, very, very beautiful lines and poetic expressions. Thou. So again, reaper I think is reaper is also Shakespearean, right? Anybody? For death, right? Reaper is referred to as death. Death comes back and takes us away, and that's the reaping or harvesting, right? Is that right?
That is okay. Reaping is the last part of the harvesting, where you
Correct. No,
cut
I'm looking
the.
at the spiritual slash religious connotation for reaping. I think in the Bible or in some Shakespearean piece of work, there is reference to reaper as God in his role for, uh, and it's linked to death. I think, I don't know. Maybe I'm just making this up or I'm getting confused. But if I find something, I will share it later.
Here also,
Right?
say he allows you to grow and then say experience the world, have your ego,
Mhm.
and then he cuts it off at the end.
Chops you off. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Chops you off, and also the other para, right? Thou sifter and again ear grower in each
Yes.
speck of flour.
So
So
repeatedly
you
happening.
go back your exactly. So you do that and then put you back to grow through this process again. So beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Thou stone cutter and gem cutter, thou potter and breaker of pots. So he continues this theme of reaping. Thou upturner and returner, thou upheavaler and leveler, thou bender of what is straight, and thou straightener of the bent, thou Baba, thou lovely woman and glory man and child, thou moon night, thou star night, thou dawn swept of stars, thou morning of sun, thou alone doer, thou adorable and adored, thou us, thou only alone self, the biggest. So it's again praise and various aspects of Godhood are brought out here. Again, the potter is a biblical theme, right? I think John the potter, or this again, like Jack the miller or John the miller, there is something for the potter. So God is treated as a potter who shapes us and brings us to life. I don't think Bible talks about breaker, but we understand breaker of the pots. So thou potter and breaker of pots, thou upturner and returner, thou upheavaler and leveler, thou bender of what is straight, and thou straightener of the bent, thou Baba, thou lovely woman, and glory man and child, thou moon night, thou star night, thou dawn swept of stars, thou morning of sun, thou alone doer, thou adorable and adored, thou us, you are us, thou alone only self. So beautiful. Yeah, creator and destroyer. Perfect. Thanks, Sanjay. So it's basically creator and destroyer themes are brought out by the potter and the breaker of pots. Thus was John Kerry complaining and praising, for complaint is praise, inasmuch as complaint is attachment and praise is complaint. Beautiful. Because praise is separation, and he was recognizing that this was the beginning of those subtraction, the sum total of which would be the subtraction of him from himself. Wow. When the five sheets are subtracted, Atman alone remains. Sivoham, Sivoham. I am existence, knowledge, bliss. And he has actually removed the spaces between the three words. Seize, seize, swallow thy breath every moment. A beautiful end of the love song, I think. So
I think
let's,
you need
we
to
should read
read
that.
that. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Thus was John Kerry complaining and praising. So he's summarizing his love song. So he was complaining and praising. For complaint is praise, because when when you're complaining, you're actually praising the person. Inasmuch as complaint is attachment, you complain only when you have an attachment. If you're not attached to something, you have no interest in complaining about it, right? So complaint is attachment. And then he goes on, praise is also complaint, because praise is separation. And he was recognizing that this was the beginning of those subtractions, the sum total of which would be the subtraction of him from himself. So he's using the word or the mathematical concept to describe separation, and he says the final sum total would be the subtraction of him from himself, and this he's referring to the drop zone. When the 5 sheets are subtracted, Atman alone remains. So when the 5, and this is Vedantic, the 5 sheets are subtracted, Atman alone remains. Shivoham, Shivoham, I am existence, knowledge, bliss. And then he says, cease, cease, stop what you're doing. Swallow thy breath every moment. Be consumed by the breath every moment, because that is what you are. And by the way, there's a little note. Yeah, go ahead.
I remember one epic stanza from Vedanta, that is Purnamada Purnamida.
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnasya Purnamada
Subtraction,
Purnameva.
addition.
Yeah, perfect. Beautiful. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. In fact, I think that's exactly what he's referring to here. So we should make a note of that.
The subtraction of him from himself.
Correct.
And the 5 sheets are subtracted, Atman alone remains. That's also Vedantic. So we are having 5 sheets, and if you go beyond all these sheets, it is Atman which remains. So Sharira, Prana,
Correct.
all the different 5 sheets.
Yeah.
In one stanza, he has brought so much into.
Yeah, perfect. Good catch. Yeah, so again, this is a beautiful love song, and I think we enjoyed the journey. So it's the smallest of the 5 books. So we are done with the second book within Stay with God. So any other thoughts, any other reactions to the love song?
Yes, it's so much of love. Okay.
Okay, so it's not yet done. There's a little note at the end of it before we go to part 3. God in the beyond state is likened to a soundless, shoreless ocean. The whim of God for knowledge of himself, who am I, manifested as sound. This oceanic sound is of God and is God and contains and is his experience of power, knowledge, and bliss. I read this line again. The oceanic sound is of God and is God and contains and is his experience of power, knowledge, and bliss. So the very whim itself is nothing but God. It contains his experience of power, knowledge, and bliss. Leave that thought with you
This is
and keep thinking about it.
yes. This almost like explanation of Om.
Exactly, yeah. The emergence of this sound through what is called the Om point or its creative utterance produced the worlds of mind, energy, and matter. So we know that's what happened. This primal oceanic sound is the root of all forms and creatures and men, and they are continuously connected with it and derive their life from it. When one closes one's lips and expresses sound, is produced. This is the foundation or ground of all spoken words and contains all feelings as when it expresses pain and anguish or joy and happiness or all thought when expressed during thought, and is capable of containing the whole of a question and its answer. This is a drop of faint sound of the oceanic sound, the or word of God separated from the ocean by 7 shadows of separation. So the sound we hear when we close our lips and make a sound is separated by 7 shadows. And it's a faint sound, a faint version of what was the oceanic sound. If the whole physical universe was a huge bell, the sound of it in comparison with sound of the oceanic sound would be as the furthermost point of audibility of an ordinary bell. This sound drop is not different from the oceanic sound. It is that ocean and can never be anything but ocean, but it experiences itself as a drop because of separation. This separation is not a separation by division, but a separation through impression. Beautiful. This separation is not, this separation is not a separation by division, but a separation through impression. As words are expressions of this drop, separated from the oceanic, are so are sense actions, expressions, and experiences removes from oceanic experiences. I'll read that line again. As words are expressions of this drop, separated from the oceanic, so are sense actions, expressions, and experiences removes from oceanic experience. Maybe this is removed, this word. I may be wrong from a editing standpoint or a grammar standpoint. Seeing and seen from oceanic sight, hear and heard from oceanic hearing, smelling and scent, tasting and flavor, touching and touch from corresponding oceanic faculties. This original oceanic is called the Brahmanad, sound or word of God, or Anhad Nad, limitless sound or word. It is continuous and is the eternal root and continuous cause of all cause and effects. It experiences all power, all knowledge, and all bliss. But the drop, although of the same substance and not in any way different from the oceanic, and although continuously connected with it, feels because of its separation through 7 shadows of separation, most weak, most ignorant, and most unhappy, even though at times it asserts strength, knowledge, and happiness. In this present age, when words, through accumulation and accretion, have become meaningless, and all my previous words in the form of precepts are neglected and distorted, I maintain silence. When I break my silence and speak, it will be this primal oceanic which I will utter through my human mouth. And because all forms and words are from this primal sound or original word and are continuously connected with it and have their life from it, when it is uttered by me, it will reverberate in all people and creatures, and all will know that I have broken my silence and have uttered that sound or word. The effective force of this word in individuals and their reaction to it will be in accordance with the magnitude and receptivity of each individual mind. And the reaction will be as instantaneous and as various as the reaction of people in a room through which a cobra suddenly and swiftly passes, when some would nervously laugh, some lose control of their bowels, and some feel great courage or reasonless hope and joy. So this is not Francis's words, this is Meher Baba's words, and I think I have not come across this earlier. This is very, very profound and gives one of the best interpretations, or at least everybody can interpret it the way they want. But I have been thinking about the breaking of the silence, and the only interpretation that I can relate to is breaking of the silence is a personal experience. And if you see the last few paragraphs, Baba
Yes.
seems to be strongly hinting at that.
Yes.
Right, so it's a experience that's, I mean, the breaking of the silence is a personal experience for each drop soul, and that happens once in his lifetime. When you hear that from Baba, and then it goes on from there, is what I would say. But again, beautiful message.
Yes. I think you can read it once again. We didn't know that it
Why
is
not?
Meher Baba.
Baba's, yes. So
Yes.
why not? Yeah. So let's read it again. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. God in the beyond state is likened to a soundless, shoreless ocean. The whim of God for knowledge of himself, who am I, manifested as sound. This oceanic sound is of God and is God, and contains and is his experience of power, knowledge, and bliss. The emergence of this sound through what is called the Om point, or its creative utterance, produce the worlds of mind, energy, and matter. This primal oceanic sound is the root of all forms and creatures and men, and they are continuously connected with it and derive their life from it. When one closes one's lips and expresses sound, a is produced. This is the foundation or ground of all spoken words and contains all feelings, as when it expresses pain and anguish, or joy and happiness, or all thought when expressed during thought, and is capable of containing the whole of a question and its answer. The, this is a drop of faint sound of the oceanic sound, the or word of God separated from the ocean by 7 shadows of separation. If the whole physical universe was a huge bell, the sound of it in comparison with sound of the oceanic sound would be as the furthermost point of audibility of an ordinary bell. This sound drop is not different from the oceanic sound. It is that ocean and never can be anything but ocean. But it experiences itself as a drop because of separation. This separation is not a separation by division, but a separation through impression. As words are expressions of this drop, separated from the oceanic, so are sense actions, expressions, and experiences removed from oceanic experience. Seeing and seen from oceanic sight, hearing and heard from oceanic hearing, smelling and scent, tasting and flavor, touching and touch from corresponding oceanic faculties.
Here,
This original,
in this
yeah,
paragraph,
para, yeah.
seeing and seen, hearing and heard, and smelling and scent, taste and flavor, touching and touch. So this is the process of knowing and the known. Both are referred to. So God is the known, whereas what we try to do is only the knowing process of it. Maybe I see like that.
No, you're right. You're right. So knowing, I mean, the process and the object.
Object.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. This original oceanic is called the Brahmanad, sound or word of God, of Anhad Nad, limitless sound or word. It is continuous and is the eternal root and continuous cause of all causes and effects. It experiences all power, all knowledge, and all bliss. But the drop, although the same substance and not in any way different from the oceanic, and although continuously connected with it, feels, because of its separation through seven shadows of separation, most weak, most ignorant, and most unhappy, even though at times it asserts strength, knowledge, and happiness. In this present age, when words through accumulation and accretion have become meaningless, and all my previous words in the form of precepts are neglected and distorted, I maintain silence. When I break my silence and speak, it will be this primal oceanic which I will utter through my human mouth. And because all forms and words are from this primal sound or original word and are continuously connected with it and have their life from it, when it is uttered by me, it will reverberate in all people and creatures, and all will know that I have broken my silence and have uttered that sound or word. The effective force of this word in individuals and their reaction to it will be in accordance with the magnitude and receptivity of each individual mind. And the reaction will be as instantaneous and as various as the reaction of people in a room through which a cobra suddenly and swiftly passes, when some would nervously laugh, some lose control of their bowels, and some feel great courage or reasonless hope and joy. Meher Baba. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Jai.
Give me 1 second. Yeah, any thoughts, any points of discussion?
Just speechless and soundless.
Can you hear the oceanic? Anyway, so yeah, I think beautiful, enjoyable reading.
I think this is the second quotation in the book, no? There are
Yes,
three
the first.
quotes from Meher Baba in the book.
Oh, are there three? Okay, the first was in the front piece, which is a message for this book by Baba. And is there one more later? I don't know.
Must be. I think I faintly remember that it was 3.
Okay. So let's if I find out more about that, we'll see. But right now, this is the second. I'm sure of that. And here's the light called Meher Baba. It's a lantern that's and the snake. So and I think the snake is also the powerful analogy that we have understood we have come across in Vedanta, right? The snake and the rope, and the only way the snake is seen as the rope is when you have knowledge, and knowledge is represented by light, right? So that's what's here in this diagram. Okay, so now we get to the core of the book, which is God's speaking, right? Which is nothing but Francis's take on the divine theme and the concepts that are covered in God Speaks. So the book itself is called God's Speaking, and the way he describes it, the question which reality asked itself, and the beginning of illusion and its end. So two things, both are a good description of the divine theme and a good uh, I mean, like the God Speaks dedication, again, it's something thought provoking and deep. The question which reality with a big R, so God asked itself, the question which reality asked itself, and the beginning of illusion and its end. So that's what it is, right? So let's get started. That is
So it is from whim to the realization.
correct.
Karthik, who has drawn these sketches? That is by him only?
No, actually, there is a artist that's mentioned here. Let's just look it up. Illustrated edition. John Parry. Here,
Okay, thanks.
John Parry. Okay. Okay, let's get started. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Once God, that great being, whose nature is existence, knowledge, and bliss, slept. He was like a man in deep sleep, who is, but does not know that he is. He had no knowledge of his knowledge, nor experience of his bliss. He was like a still, shoreless ocean, which no wind or wave moved upon. There was nothing but him. There were no stars, nor sun, nor earth, nor anything. All things were within him, but since he slept, they also were asleep, unformed and unmanifest. All knowledge of himself and of all things were in him, but he did not know that he knew. Then there surged with him the desire, whim, to know who he was, and he spoke within himself the first speech: Who am I? And with the utterance of this first speech, all things in their potentiality came forth from him. But all things are nothing. And so the universe of stars and suns is nothing. Nothing is included in his everything, but is nothing in itself. But at this time, since he did not know his knowledge, he did not know that nothing was nothing at all. Pretty quick progress. In two stanzas, he started from beyond the beyond to going to the whim and being lost in the illusion of nothing being something. Each thing he brought forth out of nothing and caused to exist. In seemingless, he, great only being, thought he was. He created stone, thought he was stone, lived as stone, millions of years, and then said, Something other am I. He created vegetation, thought he was vegetation, lived as vegetation millions of years, and then said, something other am I. He created in turn worms and reptiles, fishes, birds, and animals, and in turn thought he was and lived as each of these. Then he created man and said, this is sufficient for all my requirements. I know myself who I am because this is in my own image, myself. I pause. Any thoughts, questions, insights? I was just reminded of one more thing from Baba's message. There is a bit in the Bible, I don't know which one, the New or the Old Testament. There is a famous line which says, in the beginning, there was the Word. So I was repeatedly reminded of that particular line, right? In the beginning, there was the Word being in capital. I mean, the first letter being in capital. In the beginning, there was the Word, right? So again, I just remembered that and I thought I should share. Anything up to the journey of man? So here again, he makes the point that Baba makes and God speaks, and I think in the Bible as well, where man is created in a likeness of himself and is complete in form. And if you recollect the What Speaks videos about God Speaks, he also, or even Don Stevens, he talks about how the human form itself is is what is in different shapes and forms in the other kingdoms. So the stone is actually a lying down version of the uh, uh, human form, and then as a vegetable you start standing up and moving and so on, right? So all of creation in its evolutionary steps is all aspiring to get to the pinnacle of form and pinnacle of consciousness, we know, which is the human form, and they are in latent form in the other kingdoms. I hope I'm making sense. Maybe I hope I'm describing it correctly. Kava,
Yes, yes.
you've been silent.
I'm in the train, buddy.
Okay.
Oh, are you? Okay. All right. Train beat. Your train beat, karma. Okay, let's continue. As as man, he loved his loves and suffered his loves. Sunbeat and rain hail, dew of love. Whirlpool and dark wave and threatening rocks. Warm swirl of the surfs, backrush round the ankles, and fine sand suspended like worlds in the water. Salt on eyes and mouth, taste of salt on her mouth, and the moon. Come up huge and yellow, warm honey of kisses, warm honey with slight salt, and the pounding of earth shaker. Let's read it
I
again.
can't make out any connection here.
Yeah,
Unable to
so
understand the
yeah,
different
suddenly,
examples. Yes, yes.
yeah, suddenly looks like it's gone back to love song. So let's read it again and see where we are. Till now we were good because he came to the human form uh, from who am I, and before that beyond. So that much we are clear. Now let's read from this stanza again and see what happens. As man, he loved his loves and suffered his loves. Sunbeat and rain hail, dew of love. Whirlpool and dark wave and threatening rocks. Warm swirl of the surfs, backrush round the ankles. and fine sand suspended like worlds in the water, salt on eyes and mouth, taste of salt on her mouth, and the moon come up huge and yellow, warm honey of kisses, warm honey with slight salt, and the pounding of earth shaker. So he's describing the experiences that man goes through, and he's talking about man being in a beach, feeling the suspended, I mean the water hitting against your feet. There's a whirlpool. There's a warm swirl of the surf's backrush around the ankles when the water goes back, and then fine sand is suspended like worlds in the water, salt on the eyes and the mouth, and then the taste of salt on her mouth and the moon come up huge and yellow, warm honey of kisses, warm honey with slight salt, and the pounding of earth shaker. I think something tells me that I did hear something about the beach and the kisses and the salt in the mouth from what park. So I have to go back and try to listen to it and see if that makes sense. So I'll mark this out in red. So did anybody else listen to that?
No, not yet.
No, you should. Okay. So anyway, let's. Any other meanings? Or
This
shall we
may
keep going?
be with the imagery of what we may experience on the seashore. He is giving all the trials and tribulations man goes through in his life while in human
Yes.
form. Yeah, probably.
Yes, possible. And I think what's not clear is the association with the moon, the the honey kiss and the salt in the mouth and whatever, right? So that part we're not sure. But I'm sure Ward talks about it. So wish all of YouTube could be transliterated or transcribed. So you can go search for this now to find out in which of those videos he talks about it. I don't know. I mean, that's tough. Anyway, that's the job. That's the work to be done. Poseidon, I continue, and dream sleep, and the breeze in the dawn stirring of a wisp of her lovely hair. Poseidon is the Greek god of the seas. So he brings up Poseidon here and says, dream sleep and the breeze in the dawn stirring a wisp of her lovely hair. Again, there is a female that he's describing here with a dawn stirring of the lovely hair. And the night of moon ended, and the honey eaten of her mouth and the stars of her eyes fled back into the wells whereof sky and the sun come up again in clear sky or murk of another day, and the setting out on wash of dark wave along hammered streets lined with open mouths and protruding tongues of Kali, licking victims and votaries into blast furnaces, goose stepping them to the rhythm of typewriter keys. I'm not very sure that he explains this very well because he talks about the tongue of Kali and the licking of victims. So what I now remember is he starts. I think the first brush with God is what the female representation. I'm sorry, I do not want to bias you guys. Please go listen to that interpretation. I'll not say anything. But it starts with that kiss on the beach, but ends with the protruding tongue of Kali licking victims. So that's what I remember now. Let's go and look back at that reference. Anybody who finds it, please share it with the others so that we can see the minute references and the specific video that talks about it. And
And you can also check with what is given at the back Any reference for anything
That's
you have
a
read?
good idea. That's a good idea. Book 3, 76. No, not yet. We're not in 76 yet, right?
Okay.
Precious word. We're not in 76 yet. We're in 70.
Or can
Anyway,
it be experience of hell? The last few lines.
possible.
Maybe.
Possible. With open mouths and protruding tongues of Kali, licking victims and votaries into blast furnaces. Yeah, that looks like hell. Goose-stepping them to the rhythm of typewriter keys. What is goose-stepping them? Right?
No, repeatedly going through cycles of life. Typewriter keys, one after the other. Each time
Keep
writing
going
a
and then
different story.
Wow,
I don't know.
interesting. Could be. Could very well be. His loves loved and joyed and suffered, stored and remembered, sifted and sorted, and evaluated through his many lives, till he takes his stand in the flood mightily, and suffers the flood, and turns the weight of its waters to break through the pass of the encircling mountains onto the plains of Troyland or Kurukshetra, turns it against the massed shields and spears and nodding forest of plumes, and the sudden rifles and hurled destruction and carried death, charging himself with impetuous valor in unheard of feats of courage and endurance. So it's still the drop soul. So the drop soul goes through quite a bit, and like
Yes.
Mama said, maybe takes on, faces the experience of hell. He goes through, and again, all these words are very important. We store and remember. So this is
Yes.
mental
Sanskara.
world, sanskaras, and sifted and sorted and evaluated through his many lives. So this is the grinding analogy. This is the sanskaras and intelligent action, unintelligent action, whether we unwind, whether we wind up, is all that's being talked about here. Till he takes his stand in the flood mightily. Remember, he's on the beach. Now it's flooded. Now he takes his stand mightily and suffers the flood and turns the weight of its waters to break through the pass of the encircling mountains onto the plains of Troyland or Kurukshetra, turns it against the massed shields and spears and nodding forest of plumes, and the sudden rifles and hurled destruction and carried death, charging himself with impetuous valor in unheard of feats of courage and endurance. Right? So I think this slowly refers to the recognition and um, involution phase, right? So slowly he moves from going through the reincarnation to involution in this para. No longer can he be counted a man, but is a hero, unthinkably great and unimaginable in feats, with the weapons of pent waters in his hands and the roar of waters in his soul. But also great is the enemy. If he falls, he dies a hero's death, and the battle maidens bear him to a hero's reward. But if he sustains the war and bears on gloriously, and God and his Guru guard him and pour into his soul divine grace and into his limbs unmatchable strength, he wins to the first circle of the seven-circled citadel of God.
Yes.
So now he makes, so it is involution to progress, and he gets the God and his guru to guard him, and then pour into his soul divine grace, and into his limbs unmatchable strength, which helps him, he says, wins to the first circle of the seven-circled citadel of God. If you remember, he uses an analogy of the seven-walled house. He already talked about it in book 1. So he talks about how there are seven walls and seven buildings, and the innermost building is God. Obvious references to the plains, but he goes back to the citadel and the buildings, and the first one is the first plane that the drop soul has just entered. On that note, we can actually pause and continue from here, or we'll just finish this page. Here he rests and enjoys the perfumes of paradise until the master, watchful and benign, urges him gently on, and he mounts to the second shining circle and enjoys heavenly music. And again, the master urges on, and he arrives at the third cycle of infinite light. Now, if the gentle Murshid urges on again, halfway across the wide plain of that plain lies enchantment. But if he holds steadily to the master's name and vision of his lovely face, he passes the danger and arrives at the fourth circle of this way. So this is up to the fourth plane. And enchantment, hierarch is talked about here. The perfumes, the music, celestial music, all of this we have seen in God Speaks, right?
Yes.
So on this note, let's stop here and look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and have a great Saturday. And by the way, as I already mentioned, we do not meet next weekend, both days. All right, so we'll wrap up.
Jai Baba.
Have a great Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Avtar Meher Baba ki Jai.
Baba ki Jai. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.